This is the 13th of June, 2019. We have something that we need to share with our viewers real quick pertaining to the statements that Nervous Nancy and some of the other Democrat parties are bringing forth to the eyes of society right now, that are basically, not only are they trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but we believe that they're wrong in their ideology to the point of ungoverning skills on the level that could possibly be crucial or even catastrophic to the lives of the American people. The reason why that we say this is because if we had good leadership during the time of 9/11 towards somebody sitting in the same position that Donald Trump is sitting in right now, maybe, just maybe, since it was brought up to Donald Trump as a hypothetical question, maybe somebody could have prevented over 3,000 lives of being destroyed whenever a group of people decided to take two airplanes and basically turn them into missiles by driving them off into the Twin Trade Towers. We think the characteristics that Donald Trump just got through answering the question, the hypothetical question, towards, yes, I would listen and maybe do both. Maybe I would listen and then turn around and then submit that information to the FBI. We think that that answer was a prominent, good quality about any leader, regardless of where the information may have come from. Regardless whether it come from the Russians, the Chinese, the Australians, the Canadians, the Mexicans. You know, you have to have all your antennas up. You have to be vigilant in every way imaginable. Now, what the receptor does with that information after hearing the information will be totally up to the receptor. Towards, wow, you know, first of all, you got to reach a determination of authenticity. Is this really real? Is this authentic? Secondly, after hearing the information, then you have to make another crucial decision. Well, what am I going to do with this information? Is it significant enough that I need to share it with others? Do I need to take it to law enforcement pertaining to a crime that's been committed? Do I need to put out an Amber Alert to all the people? Because we do not want to get sideswiped anymore by something coming at us that we don't see. And we think that the characteristics of governing, of the answer that Donald Trump gave, is and was the proper answer to that type of a symbolical question that was questioned to him. Let's listen to this particular sequence, and we're going to allow for the viewers to make their own determination. Please listen.
For the president to be so cavalier, to disregard, to be indifferent to law and any sense of ethics about who we are as a country, to say he would invite foreign intervention, that's an assault on our democracy.
See, they're looking at it as it being foreign intervention. And we're looking at it as it being a safeguard that is in place, to the point that if that safeguard would have been properly demonstrated during 9/11, possibly 9/11 would not have occurred. Because we would have had somebody up there that was listening and paying attention to wherever or whoever was giving out the information. And to us, it wouldn't matter if it was coming from an alien or if it was coming from an angel, or it was coming from whoever, that is the president's job to govern, to make sure, or to try to make sure, the safety and the well-being of his people. And if it means taking up a little bit of extra time towards hearing what this person has to say about their opponent, then maybe so be it. Maybe we need to sit down and listen to somebody that's bringing forth this information. Once more, the person that is listening to that person has to make a couple determinations. First of all, they have to determine whether or not the authenticity of the information is even valid. That's the first determination. Then, after they have assumed, once more, hypothetically speaking, that the information that's been given to them is valid, now you have to say, okay, in what category or in what frame of context does this need to be put into? Is this talking about an individual? Is this talking about the safety of almost 400,000 people here in America? Where do we go with the information after we have determined that the information has been validated? Well, that's up to the person that has received the information towards whether or not he needs to put out an Amber Alert and tell everybody, or whether or not he just needs to go to the FBI, or whether or not he just needs to shove it off to the side and act like, okay, that sounds to me like some more wind blowing in the trees. But let's listen to some more of this, because as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats have lost the ability to govern and to look at the safety, not so much the other aspect that Nervous Nancy was talking about. So please listen.
Nancy Pelosi today slamming President Trump's remarks about accepting foreign interference, but still holding the line against opening impeachment hearings, despite pressure from her caucus. Joining me now is Susan Page, USA Today's Washington bureau chief. Sam Stein.
Let's back up. Let's listen to all what Nervous Nancy's saying here.
Insulin.
Hold up. Hold up. Here we go. Listen up.
For the president to be so cavalier, to disregard, to be indifferent to law and any sense of ethics about who we are as a country, to say he would invite foreign intervention, that's an assault on our democracy. An assault on our democracy.
House Speaker Nancy
You see, they're using it as foreign intervention. They have twisted the question around to the point that, first of all, they have taken the question out of context in regard to how he answered the question. Listen to some more.
Pelosi today slamming President Trump's remarks about accepting foreign interference, but still holding the line against opening impeachment hearings, despite pressure from her caucus. Joining me now is Susan Page, USA Today's Washington bureau chief.
Naturally, anybody does not want foreign interference. Nobody. Nobody wants nobody to come into our American fair, open, free elections to be able to persuade the American people one way or the other towards who we're going to put in power and who we're not going to put in power. Nobody wants that. Nobody is expecting for anybody to want that. And what they're doing is taking things out of context of the question that was questioned to the president, because the president is about safety, safety, safety. He's got a job to do, and it's related around safety. And it ain't around, it's kind of like somebody having their mind in a gutter. You've heard that before. And some little something can come up about sex or immorality, and all of a sudden their minds leer off to the far left or to the far right, and they come up with some of the most perverted accusations and thoughts that you can think of. In essence, this is what's happening right here. Our chief and commander was asked a question by a reporter. It was a hypothetical question, first of all. What if a frog had wings? Would he have to worry about bumping his tail every time he jumped? I'm adding a little humor to what I'm trying to say here. But the president was not looking at it in the same set of lenses as what they're wanting to pervert the question at. They're wanting to take the question out of concept. It was a hypothetical question. We think that the chief and commander answered it properly. Yes, what harm is it going to hurt to listen, to be in observance of whatever somebody is saying? After you have listened, then you make your own determinations. They automatically are putting Donald Trump into a box. They are compartmentalizing Donald Trump as him being the enemy of the state. And the question that I have, what has conformed or perverted these people in their mindset towards them thinking this way? Because if this is the group of people that's going to be in power, let's just say hypothetically that Donald Trump does lose the election, and let's say the Democrats does become in power, are they going to be as blindsided and as ignorant as the predecessors that's come before towards allowing for various things to happen to us, the same as what happened during the attacks of 9/11? Listen to these opinions. Listen to what these people are saying. And you use your own judgment in what the hell is going on. Please listen.
Sam Stein, politics editor for the Daily Beast, and MSNBC contributor Mara Gay, New York Times editorial board member and MSNBC contributor. Susan, you were at the news conference with Pelosi. How much pressure is building on her? She seems very firm against starting what would be an impeachment inquiry, at least.
You know, you see increasing pressure, including from the Democratic presidential contenders in support of impeachment. But she was pretty clear. While she was very critical of what the president said on this issue, she also said it was not a trigger that made her any more likely to move toward impeachment. She said they're going to continue with their strategy of investigating through the congressional committees, and she noted that they were having some success in going to the courts to try to demand testimony and documents from the White House. That is clearly her preferred path.
And you talked about the Democratic candidates. We have a combination of some of their comments because they were very quick to jump on this. Let's watch.
We think her preferred path is to destroy the very good thing that we have in office right now that's trying to overcome all these obstacles. In other words, we got a group of people that it's not good enough that we got attacked once. It's not good enough that we got all our jails full. It's not good enough that we have been inundated by drugs to the point that it sabotaged our system over here. It's not good enough that they was trying to take Christmas and outlaw it to the point that you had to say happy holidays, and if you had any Christmas lascivity scenes out in your yard that you was liable to be arrested. It's not good enough that we got attacked during 9/11. It's not good enough that we're almost $22 trillion in debt. We got to add more insult to misery. According to what I'm looking at, coming from the Democrat Party, that don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to govern. The president gave a good answer in response to who cares where the source is coming from. If it was coming from an alien or an angel. What you do with that information could very well depend upon our livelihood and our successes here in America.
he is yet again open to the idea of working with foreign governments to undermine the integrity of our election system.
You are automatically assuming that. You have taken the question out of context, number one. Number two, you have compartmentalized the president automatically as in being some sort of a enemy of the state. And because you cannot go at this man in a dignified way, you have to bring up manipulating responses to these type of actions that does not resonate with the American people. I don't know what the hell has happened to the Democrat Party. I don't know if they got hoodooed, bamboozled. I don't know if it just means that much to them to the point that they're willing to cut off their own noses to despite their faces in regard to Donald Trump doing some of the most heroic things that I think that I've ever seen a president do. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's perfect. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I agree with every one of his policies, because I don't. But what I do agree with, or what we do agree with, is the fact that if you're going to be a good, sound, governed leader, you must not go into this thing blindsided. And if it means sitting down and hearing somebody out and then taking that information and validating it one way or the other, then so be it. I'd rather him spend his time on the telephone listening to somebody than to spend his time going through rubble after 3,000 people just got through coming to their deaths towards what occurred here in America 2 administrations ago. Or 3 administrations ago. What is wrong with these people? They are willing to do anything to try to jump on board to govern the United States. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think that they could even govern their own affairs, much less ours. Listen to this stuff.
It's outrageous, and it tells me the guy...
Yes, it is outrageous. It's outrageous upon y'all's behalf because you're crazy. Something's happened to you to the point that you don't know how to govern. We commend the president towards him having all his eyes and ears open. We commend the president towards him having all his antennas up. That way we don't get attacked again like we did during 9/11. We commend his answer.
Doesn't understand the job and can't do it very well.
Doesn't understand his job and can't do it very well. Keep in mind, this president went into office of a runaway train that was not prone, not could be, but was an absolute fixing to run off the tracks and self-destruct. This country was on its way towards a complete catastrophic event. And now we have finally put somebody in there that has their eyes and ears open, and now they want to punish him towards him doing his job. It is sickening in what I'm hearing coming from this particular party. And as far as I am concerned, they do not have proper governmental skills to govern a nation with almost 400,000 people in it. They are out of their literal minds because they are taking things out of context.
President who neither understands the Constitution of the United States or respects the Constitution.
This has nothing to do with the Constitution. This has to do with the safety and the well-being of the American people. So what? He had a vision from God. And an angel spoke to him. And the angel said, get ready, something's fixing to occur. I would much rather our chief and commander listen to that angel and properly prepare us for whatever was fixing to happen than to get blindsided again the way that we did during 9/11. This is the determining factors that these people does not understand. They're incapable of understanding these characteristics that Donald Trump has, that he's trying to bring a better life to all of us over here.
I think the president's answer to George Stephanopoulos yesterday underscores the importance of moving forward with impeachment.
Sam Stein, is this pressure going to keep building? Is it going to become an impossible challenge for Nancy Pelosi?
Well, it's going to keep building. I don't know about whether it becomes impossible, but it's very clear that her position is more and more conflicted. I mean, what she's saying right now is that the president is an existential threat to democracy. Previously, she has said she wants to see him locked up. And at the same time, she's saying she's not going to move aggressively to do anything about it, or more aggressively than she is right now. You can see the tension between those 2 points, and certainly that's being picked up internally within the Democratic caucus, where the numbers are increasing routinely for people calling for impeachment proceedings. Today, Congressman Eric Swalwell, a presidential candidate in his own right, and a close Pelosi ally, he is from California like Pelosi, did finally come out for impeachment inquiry proceedings. And that, I believe, makes a majority of Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee who have done so. So momentum is building. Pelosi clearly is not enamored with the idea, but her position has problems logically, and I think it's going to be difficult for her to maintain this position.
Margay, the clock is also a factor here, because at a certain point in the campaign process, once you get into the fall, it would be very difficult once 2020 is upon us.
I mean, that's right. And there are practical concerns that you're raising here about moving forward with impeachment. I do think that the Speaker's position is somewhat untenable long-term. In a way, she's hoping to run out the clock, I think. Really, in her mind, I believe, and in the minds of many Democrats, though not all, the number one goal is to make sure that Donald Trump loses this election. And if that's your number one goal, and you think that moving forward with impeachment is going to put that at risk, as I believe the Speaker does, then you're pretty wary of that. Now, I don't know about the wisdom. I don't know that anyone has a perfect scenario of how that would really play out. The number of undecided voters around the country is so small as well. It's hard to see that someone would be persuaded either way by impeachment, to say that the Democrats are going too far. I'm not sure that I buy that, but at the same time, it's a risk, and it's a risk that the Speaker doesn't want to take.
And Susan, isn't it also a risk to keep going forward with 6 different committees firing off subpoenas, contempt citations, legal procedures that aren't getting anywhere in terms of certainly getting a public witness testifying? You know, Hope Hicks is going to come next week, but it's again going to be in private, as Don Jr.'s was yesterday. And so they're not getting the display, the public narrative, the movie, if you will, of the Mueller report for those who are not willing to read the book.
You know, that's true. And the John Dean.
I want to stop right there on what you just said, those who are not willing to read the book. The book of life, the Bible, says to rightfully divide the scriptures between the spirit man and the fleshly man towards what the Bible is actually talking about. And in actuality, sometimes the Bible is talking about both at the same time. Now, if you're so teeny-weeny minded, you basically are captivated in this little cell or in this little box, to the point that you cannot rightfully divide the scriptures properly in understanding the way that the scriptures have interpreted various things. Odds are you're probably going to swing at this and miss at it by about 3 foot, because it comes down to the same persona of what's going on here in America. We've got people that are so fine-tuned to the events that's going on around them. They can't see the big picture of what has happened in the administration before this administration which was the Obama administration. They can't see the problems that occurred during the administration before Obama's administration, which was the era of the young Bush administration, of the falling of the Twin Towers. And they for darn sure can't see the events that occurred during Mr. Senior's administration or even the Reagan administration. They can't, they're having problems separating towards what has already occurred and what is presently occurring. For some reason, they have these little tiny finite minds. And they can't see, as the old saying goes, the trees for the forest. They're blindsided. And because they're blindsided, they're not looking at the big picture towards safety issues in regard to the American people's lives. And these people are willing to do anything to try to manipulate the truth about our present chief and commander, Donald Trump, just so they can become in power. This teeny-weeny, fine-minded thinking is the very thing that has gotten us in the trouble that we're in right now. And they're too blinded to see it. And they're actually willing to cut off their own noses to despite their face, just so they can run around and beat their chest like a bunch of apes and say, "We beat them. We beat them." Oh, you beat them. You manipulated the truth. You compartmentalized this man and you put him out to the wolves and manipulated the truth about his will and his intent. Because his intent and his will is to help the American people, not to hurt the American people. But now if you'll sit down and interview these people right here that you just got through listening to, every one of them will tell you, well, Donald Trump's a madman. He don't know what he's doing. And he's out to bring harm and hurt to the American people. But yet, no, we see the statistics of what he's done. Just as recently with Mexico, you know, rather than going to an all-out and out brawl with Mexico, he finally convinced the Mexican government, hey, if you guys don't pitch in towards the problem here with all these immigrants, something serious is fixing to happen to your pocketbook. To me, that's good leadership, because he's using other means to be able to get through to his assessors or his opponents or his business partners or whatever word that you want to use. He is using different tactics and strategies in accomplishing what needs to be accomplished. These people right here, they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to give you any point on a point system. They're not going to give Donald Trump any points. A matter of fact, they're trying to make him out to be an enemy of the state. I've never heard such manipulation as I have of what's going on. And whenever it comes to interference from other countries, nobody wants that. We know that. Nobody wants that in their right mind. Why would anybody want Russia or China or even a small little country like Honduras or Venezuela to manipulate our way of thinking towards what we think about in regard to our fair, free elections? Nobody wants that. But now to hear them talk, that's exactly what Donald Trump is up to. And this has got to stop, folks, because all we're doing is shooting ourselves in the foot. We're on a path right now of recovery. We need to remain on the path of recovery. We do not need to keep doing this again and again and again, because it is destroying our democracy. And eventually, it will destroy us. After we've reached $24+ trillion, and we can no longer maintain the interest on the money that we owe on, then our credit rating will go from a 4-star rating that it's at right now, probably down to about a 2. And then is whenever troubles will come far and wide towards the American way of life. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to prevent from happening. And that's the part that you can't get through to these people.
Testimony didn't exactly capture the public imagination in the way I think some Democrats on the Judiciary Committee had hoped it would. On the other hand, when you look at the Democratic members of the House who are supporting impeachment, Sam's quite right, it includes a fair share of the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee. It is not even close to majority Democrats in the caucus. Right. And importantly, it does not include Democrats who are running in swing districts, right. The Democrats who flipped districts in 2018 and gave Democrats the power to investigate through their committees. And that is the balancing act, I think, that Nancy Pelosi is facing.
Yeah, she's got to worry about losing the House.
Right. Can I add one thing? Let me add one thing. When you talk to people in the caucus, one of the things that they're very sensitive of is the perception that they are eager or itching for this, leadership that is. And so what Pelosi is trying to do, and to some degree, is to come off as if she's being forced into this more aggressive oversight posture and potentially into impeachment proceedings. She doesn't want it to come off as sort of a Democratic itch. She wants Democrats to pursue their other legislative priorities. But if she can keep a distance and hold it back for a little bit, it will look like she was compelled to do it by Trump himself. I don't know if that's tenable, and increasingly you see these contorted arguments. Jan Schakowsky this morning, another close Pelosi ally, responded to the news of Donald Trump's comments yesterday by saying it looks like Trump is trying to bait them into doing impeachment. That doesn't really strike me as obvious or honest, to be honest, because Trump says these things all the time. So, yes, Pelosi is in a difficult bind here.
Susan Page, Sam Stein, and Mara Gay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrea.
And tune in tonight to NBC Nightly News for my exclusive interview with Anita Hill, her first broadcast television interview since Vice President Joe Biden announced he is running for president. We'll have a full interview tomorrow, of course, right here on Andrea Mitchell Reports. And coming up, Congress takes its first major deep dive into the threat of deep fakes, the danger of artificial intelligence-generated data ahead, right here on Andrea Mitchell Reports. Stay with us on MSNBC.
It is so, so sad that our enemy has cornered us up into this type of engineered artificial intelligence to the point that now we're questioning one another's will and one another's intent. And that's exactly what happened to one of the most powerfulest countries in the world, which was Rome. And it became decaying from the inside. And the reason why it became decaying from the inside was because they began to question one another's ability towards what is your true motive? What has motivated you in you not only saying this, but what has motivated you in you doing this? And we don't have to have a genius, somebody to sit down and tell us that somebody failed the American people during 9/11 18 years ago. And those people that failed us was not the simple-minded people. It was the experts. It was the people that was supposed to be sitting in positions like Donald Trump, that was supposed to have had all their antennas up, and they was supposed to have been looking for any snag or anything out there that looked peculiar to the point that it was going to bring harm and hurt to the American people. And now we've got somebody in there like that, and now they want to demonize him and dehumanize him and try to convince the rest of the country that this man is a bad man. This man has bad morals. This man has bad intentions. And if the truth be known, the people that actually has the bad intentions or the bad morals is not Donald Trump, but it's the people that's competing against Donald Trump. And they really hate Donald Trump because Donald Trump is accomplishing the things that he says that he's going to try to accomplish. They really hate him for it. And it's almost like it's a bunch of children bickering, brawling with each other because they really don't know what the big picture is. They're just so selfish that they want to be the king of the mountain. Well, you know, everybody wants to be the king of the mountain. But are you qualified to be the king of the mountain? And it sounds to me like Nervous Nancy and her group of people is not qualified to be the king of the mountain, because if the truth be known, these were the people that actually gave the farm away to begin with in the past previous administrations, that has brought all this sorrow and grief and uncomfortness to all of our lives, or to most all of our lives. So let's listen to what this program here has to talk about pertaining to good old artificial intelligence that has come in to help to manipulate our way of thinking and our self-will against one another towards having confidence in each other. So let's listen to this, please.
Social media in political campaigns and threaten national security. This morning, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on the threat of so-called deep fakes, computer-generated fake videos where someone's face can be manipulated or even placed onto someone else's body. NBC's Morgan Radford explains. A show and tell.
Who can forget this moment at the Grammys when Lady Gaga honored Sir Elton John?
Thank you, Elton.
Or when Lady Gaga took the stage at the Golden Globes with Bradley Cooper. But look now.
It is an honor.
That's not Lady Gaga standing next to Bradley Cooper. That's me, my face replacing Lady Gaga.
Michael Douglas, the Kaminsky Method.
And at the Grammys, there I am again.
Thank you, Elton. I love you.
Every facial expression Lady Gaga makes, Morgan makes. Effectively, we've put Morgan at the Golden Globes.
And how did he make such a convincing fake? With free software, a regular desktop computer, and some basic programming.
Joining me now for more on this story are NBC's Morgan Radford and Ben Collins.
Okay, I want to stop for a second. Once more, the only core of origin that I know of is to go back to the Book of Life. What does the Book of Life talk about pertaining to these events that we're just got through seeing as far as artificial intelligence? Well, first of all, the Book of Life says that in the last days that there will be signs in the heavens and signs upon the earth such as man has never seen before. We've all pretty well figured that out, that while we're going to see things and we're going to experience things that previous generations before us pertaining to humanity has never even had to see, hear, or experience. So we've already done accepted that as it being a form of reality. Okay? But what we don't understand pertaining to the Bible, pertaining to the Book of Life, is that Christ said that in the last days that they would be able to deceive the very elect if it was possible. Do you think that whenever Jesus said that he was primarily just thinking about or talking about people's deceptionable thoughts or deceptionable wills or deceptionable desires of being able to do that one-on-one? No. No. Christ knew that we was going to be walking off into adventurous areas that we're walking off into now, such as artificial intelligence. And if you think that it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing whenever it comes to cloning and imagery of being able to take people's images and make them look like that they're at one particular area, and the whole time they may be doing something else in a completely different area. There is no limits to artificial intelligence. And what we're seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg towards what's to be expected in the future. And if there's any threat pertaining to our open, fair elections, I would say that the threat of artificial intelligence will exceed any threat coming from the Russians, China, or any other foreign land, because we are becoming susceptible to this tool that has been engineered and placed in front of our faces, such as our smartphone technology, and because of it, this is just a little bit towards what's to be expected in the future. So please, let's listen to this as we're closing off to our viewers.
Both of you, Morgan, if you're going to play Lady Gaga, get the diamonds.
I chose the right person, right?
You chose the right person. But how scary is that? And of course, we've seen what's happened with computerized, videos being distorted. Nancy Pelosi is still angry at Facebook for not taking down that altered video and has reportedly not been willing to talk to Mark Zuckerberg about it. Morgan, tell me how easily this can be done.
Super easily. So for example, just to make that video, Andrea, I had to stand in front of a computer screen for like 10 or 15 minutes, and they were able to do it so quickly with really basic software, which is why I think when I interviewed Congressman Schiff, he was saying, one, how severely can this impact our elections if you do this with political videos, as you just mentioned, but two, how do we protect ourselves, especially when so many of these videos are being made overseas? What is the U.S.'s role, and how can we protect our citizens?
And Ben, we have some examples that we can even show of Mark Zuckerberg and Barack Obama, other altered videos, if we can show those. You can see how easily this can be done. There are real national security implications.
Oh, yeah, of course. If you drop this is really what people are worried about, and this is why there was a hearing this morning. If you drop one of these videos that's really explosive a day before the election, not even reporters can track this down fast enough. We don't have the detection to pull it off. And by the time the political cycle ends, who knows what's going to happen with it. That's the worry. And also the biggest worry is these things can be made, like you said, just in seconds by random people. The Nancy Pelosi video did not take very long to make. And it happened on, again, free software.
And where are these people who do this? They're outside of the country, out beyond the reach of our law, many of them.
Yeah, the Nancy Pelosi video was made in the country by just some guy who was unemployed. These other videos are made by people. I talked to a guy in the Czech Republic yesterday who said, I'm not making political ones, but I'm going to make some comedy ones and play around with it. And it took him a day to make the most convincing one I've ever seen in my life. And he said that he's not going to do politics, right? But that doesn't mean other people aren't going to do that using the same free software in one day. He said he even got offers from people after he posted his on YouTube by various people all around the world. So this is going to be a thing, unfortunately, for us.
And at this hearing today, one of our contributors, one of our colleagues, Clint Watts, was one of the witnesses with Adam Schiff. Let's watch.
How do we deter this kind of foreign meddling, realizing that that is only going to be one part of the problem?
We should have a default rule, platforms should have a default rule, that if we're going to have impersonations or manipulation that do not reflect what we've done or said, that platforms should, once they figure it out, take it down.
There's several parts. One is we have to have a plan, and it's a multi-part plan. And the other part is we have to respond quickly. This has not been the tradition of our government.
And what about the social media companies, Ben? They have been widely criticized for not responding on the Pelosi video, and there's growing pressure for more government regulations.
Right. It's sort of a mess in terms of speech here, right? If you take down one of these videos, why that one and not some sort of other CGI video, right? You can't, that's the argument made by Facebook. But then again, they're taking down disinformation accounts left and right that just Photoshop things that are wrong. So really, they haven't melded one specific policy from all of the tertiary policies they put together, and that's going to be the issue here. We have this really specific example of Nancy Pelosi being targeted by a bad actor. They won't take that down. Once we get one of these a day coming in 2020, which is going to happen, by the way, they might want to reverse course in that. That might happen.
And the question is also not just what they will do, but what they can do. So, for example, when we spoke to Facebook yesterday and YouTube, they said that we're working to increase our technologies at the same speed that these other technologies are happening. But, you know, we also don't know if we can completely clamp down on this disinformation. Twitter, on the other hand, said, well, we're also trying to do the same thing. We don't want people to manipulate our platform. Twitter said we also don't want to be put in a position where we have to determine what is true and what is false.
And one of the things that we saw already in 2016 is the preponderance of fake accounts, of bots that were started by the Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg and pretending to be groups similar to Black Lives Matter and other to create more divisions in society. So it's not only the video, but it's creating separate groups that don't even exist. There were protest rallies we covered that ended up to be Russian rallies.
That's the larger, more persistent threat here, too. Those things can be done much faster. Just putting different context or a different headline over specific videos, that's just as bad of a problem as these really high-tech ones, and we still haven't figured that out either.
And how do we react as consumers?
Big questions, and our government doesn't seem very eager to take it on. Morgan Radford, thank you so much. Ben Collins, great to see you. And coming up on MSNBC, 2020 presidential candidate John Delaney joining Velshi and Rule for a live interview. Stay tuned for that. And the countdown is on, only 13 days until the first presidential debate in Miami.
Our government that they keep talking about is the very people that help to engineer and manufacture this thing that is now getting completely out of hand pertaining to artificial intelligence. They have created a monster, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and now since they've created the monster is taking on a life of its own. And because it's taken on a life of its own, now they don't know how to control the monster. I have been telling people this all along. Whenever you're dealing with supernatural events pertaining to the spirit world, and you have to recognize that if you believe in good, you have to believe in evil. If you believe in the angels of God, you got to believe in the demons of God. These things can get in to people's minds and go into areas on our little handheld devices that can literally transform not one person's way of thinking, but a multitude, a group, a whole society's way of thinking. It has that ability, that type of power in today's society. And unless we can figure out a more safer, engineered way to where people cannot do these bad playing events towards trying to use trickery and manipulation on people, my prognosis to all this that it's just going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And unless we can really stay on top of these platforms and using, let's say, retinal or fingerprint security stability on these platforms, any and everybody can get into this and basically brainwash or manipulate a whole group of people. And if there's anything that we need to be fearful of, it's not Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump. It's this. Towards manipulating our free, fair elections. This is what we have to be concerned about in 2019, fixing to walk off into the 2020 elections. These are the things that we have to be concerned about that can be very, very misleading and very, very deceiving in the facts that we see one thing and we believe one thing, but in reality, that wasn't the real thing. And these are the trickery events that Jesus talked about, that in the last days, in which I'm thoroughly convinced that we're living in, that in the last days, Satan will have the capacity, he will have the ability to deceive the very elect if it was possible. How do you think Satan is going to be able to do this? He had to engineer a tool, a weapon, a device. And now he's got it right in front of us. And he can just as easily persuade us to go to the far right as he does the far left, or go to the far left as he does the far right. And unless we're willing to be onto this and to do something about this, my prognosis is that it's just going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better pertaining to this type of manipulation. So if there's ever been a time that we needed to put trust in each other rather than putting trust in a device, if there's ever been a time that we needed to pray to God in believing in good, strong leadership, please, for God's sakes, it's today. Because we're living in a time like none other. Yes, it can be grand and adventurous and very prosperous for a great deal of us. But on the other hand, it can be destructive and it can be catastrophic in others if we don't watch. So we have to put up these warning signs. We have to let people be aware of the century that we're living in and the times that we're living in. That way they will not be caught unaware to the point of destruction. Thank you for letting me speak. Good luck to all of us. And once more, as I have said before and I'll say again, shalom. Shalom to my viewers. And good luck to all of us. God bless. See ya.